And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome once again to Coffee Talk. That is at Coffee Talk on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com. Podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. As we get ready to dive into what's going on in the world today, taking a look at the news and other tidbits and finding out what's going on, maybe some things you've heard about, maybe not. And I will dig into them as sarcastically as possible to pick out all the hypocrisy I can. And for those of you who are listening and not watching, of course, I read through as many of the comments as is plausible so that you can follow along with the conversation. I do try to acknowledge as many people as I can who are able to join us in the live portion at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. So I'll go ahead and I'll say hi to a few people really quickly here. I see Helter is joining us today, Dragon, Velvet Pilot, who else? Nathan Helix is here. Preparedness Veteran. D'Lo is here. Velvet Pilot reminds people to smash the like button. Yeah, I appreciate it if you do. Boogers is here. So just got done watching the Colin Wood disaster. Wow. I almost had a disaster here because I almost didn't have a show today. As a matter of fact, I contacted Fistful of Radio and told them to cancel my slot for for today because I could connectivity problems. As you know, there was the problem with the modem yesterday. It just died. Got a replacement modem, and you see the box sitting right there. For those of you who can see, that is the third one. Third one. The last 2 days I've been struggling with this. Because we had our own modem, it died. We can't get our own in on time. We can't replace it on time. It's just not in the budget. So we use Xfinity, went to Xfinity. They gave us one. A lot of connectivity issues with it. And that's their 10G. It works perfect. You'll love it. It's a piece of shit. Okay. Sorry, Xfinity. Your equipment sucks. It major connectivity issues, didn't want to acknowledge the computers, or the computers didn't want to acknowledge it because it's not very backwards compatible. And if it's Ethernet, it should just work if you plug it in. Never mind the Wi-Fi, which wouldn't work. And they're like, oh no, it's probably just a problem with that unit. Bring it back. We'll give you another one. That one, nothing would connect at all. No connectivity. Totally dead. So we go back again. Okay, I'll get to the news. Trust me. There's news out there, folks. So we go back again, and we got this one. And this is actually going backwards because the person who was there was like, yeah, you know what? Nobody likes that 10G thing. It doesn't work. It doesn't connect to anything. If you'll give it another chance, I'll give you one of the old ones, a 7, whether 7G or whatever the hell it is. Plugged it in, let it boot up, everything connected to it like that. So 10G is a lie and a ripoff. Just saying. Thanks for nothing, Xfinity. And not like we have too many choices out here as far as internet connection, considering where we are. But that's what we've got, and it doesn't work. And I actually went as far as having to cancel the live stream, like I said, because I didn't think I'd be able to get online. And then that happened, and literally we picked it up, and that's the box sitting right there, this white piece of junk. Got it ironed out like 10 minutes ago. Booted up and loaded up in online like 10 minutes ago, and I was like, okay, I can do it now. And I reactivated the live stream and sent a message to Fistful of Radio and said, yeah, never forget that last message. I'll be able to go online anyways. So that's my bit of helter skelter news for the day. And I see Urban Angst has joined us. Glad you could make it, Urban. You missed my diatribe there. blithering on about how much Xfinity sucks. Isn't that right, Uncle? Uncle, everybody? Sitting up there on the box, taking a nap. He's been sitting there for a couple hours, keeping me company. I don't know where anyone else is, so don't ask. As we get ready to actually finally get into the news, we're going to dig into the news and see what's going on in the world today. And we're going to jump to New York. And this is an article from The Messenger. And The Messenger says, New York hotels housing the migrants say that the city owes them $130 million in unpaid costs. Wow. More than 100 hotels are waiting on payments from City Hall, according to the Hotel Association of New York City. Wow. And that's hotels, not motels, right? So they're not even counting the motels. It says hotels housing hundreds of migrants in New York City say they are owed some $130 million in total after the city failed to pay them for over 2 months, a group representing the owners said Thursday. The Hotel Association of New York City told ABC 7 News that 110 hotels being used to house the thousands of new arrivals are still waiting for money from City Hall, with some not paid since September. Nobody expected it would take this long to get paid. Seriously? You're talking about the city government. Vijay Dhanapani, the head of the Hotel Association, told the outlet. Dhanapani said frustrated hotel owners are calling the association on a daily basis asking when their money will come. That's in contrast to reports earlier this year that the hotel industry had been boosted by the payments. Yeah, but they're still owed and they still get it eventually. You will get paid, Dhanapani said. He tells the managers and owners, it's not a question of if, but it's a question of when. In October, it was revealed that the daily cost of housing a migrant in New York City was around $394, having risen steadily over the past several months. At the same time, the city was spending millions on private security contracts at shelter sites. However, Dhanapani said that he believes the costs have now outstripped what the City Hall has budgeted for. The Department of Social Services spokesperson told the Messenger that a contract extension had now been agreed and that the city was in the process of paying outstanding bills. Since late spring, New York City has managed a national crisis largely on its own, opening over 210 emergency sites to care for more than 150,000 asylum seekers who have come to us seeking shelter and services, the spokesman said. I like how they say largely on its own, and that right there is a dig, meaning that they want more federal money. That's what that means. As I pop in a couple more comments here, Preparedness says the situation never gets better. There's absolutely nothing positive about these invaders. Absolutely. And Velvet Pilot says they'll never see that money. Oh, they'll get the money eventually. The hotels will get paid because there's a contract, but that means that they're going to have to pull more tax money and more resources in order to pull it off, in order for that to happen. Because that sort of a thing, that sort of a hiccup taking place with contracts with city governments, it's pretty common actually, but this just happens to be on a larger scale because we're talking about 110 hotels owed $130 million. It's a lot of money. And Legends is here. Glad you could make it, Legends, as we continue on. It says DSS is committed to paying our contractors for their services in a timely manner after receiving all required documents. If payments are ever delayed, we work closely with everyone involved to quickly rectify the situation and pay any and all outstanding invoices. Sure you do. They put people off until they can pay it, is all that means. They get somebody on the phones. I've been through that myself, again, working for the Juvenile Justice Authority and running my facility. and my facility would have to be paid so that I could then pay vendors, pay bills, pay utilities. And there were blackout periods with transitions, an election, something's going on, and there'd be a blackout, and a month would be skipped, sometimes two, and then they would backlog the payment, and you'd get it all, but you'd have to wait. Helter says, remember when New York was a busy business hub with professional people everywhere? Now it looks like Skid Row. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, it does. And All People is here. All People wants to know what they missed. You missed my diatribe about dealing with the internet and Xfinity and how their 10G is a pile of garbage and a lie. And all sorts of connectivity issues that I had, because the box that's sitting behind me now is the third modem, the third one now. And I got an older one rather than a newer one because now it really works. Now it works with the 7. This is the 7 modem, which is right there, as opposed to the 10 that Xfinity's trying to get everybody to take. It won't connect to anything. It fights everything, even its own systems, even its own proprietary Xfinity systems it fights. Dragon says it's better to return back to their homeland than to go through this, as they can see it's not working. The city will just have an even larger homeless crisis than ever before. No wins here. Well, you remember all of those Venezuelans are starting to turn around. They're starting to go back, and they were saying the ones in Chicago, they got their work permits and everything. They still have nowhere to live and no jobs. And they were like, we may as well go back to Venezuela. We're freezing our asses off out here. They're not used to that kind of temperature. High temperatures, sure. All People says, did your modem completely company offer to give you a free new modem in exchange for your broken one? No, well, the modem was ours. We owned it. Haven't been able to contact them yet. We just, had to rush and get something. So we took the company modem, and it wouldn't work. And then they replaced it, and the replacement wouldn't work. And then when we went in and confronted them about it, they said the 10G stuff never works. Everybody complains about it. It won't connect to shit. And so, but if I give you a 7, it'll light right up. And it did. It went online immediately when I plugged it in, the older one. But as for our modem, the original one that started it all, it was our own personal modem that we used instead of an Xfinity modem. But yeah, we haven't gotten around to seeing if we can do anything with that yet. But on the same subject, kind of, and jumping from New York to Chicago here. This is the Daily Mail. It says, Chicago's migrant crisis spirals out of control. Oh, it just now? It hasn't already been out of control? City spent nearly $1 million on failed camp before pulling the plug, as officials now impound buses bringing migrants to the city from Texas on Governor Greg Abbott's orders. And Velvet Pilot said there's a guy in Chicago. He's been talking a lot about this. Some of the invaders leaving because of the Arctic temperatures. There's some solace in that. Yeah, the argument is, I can be homeless and hungry in my own hometown. At least I got friends and family there. And it's like, what? That makes sense. You came all the way here for nothing because our government lied to you and told you to come on down. And here we are. Chicago spent nearly $1 million to build a migrant camp on a toxic site as the city continues to struggle with a massive surge of asylum seekers, with officials now impounding incoming buses. Yeah, they rented that site without testing it and set up their tent city, and then found out that it was contaminated and it was unfit for humans to be there, which is why it was an abandoned lot in the first place. Nice going. Nice going, Chicago lawmakers. Official records seen by ABC 7 shows the city spent more than $985,000 on the shuttered migrant camp at a Brighton parking lot, despite warnings the site was not safe and an outrage by locals, including lawsuits. The nearly $1 million bill is not much compared to the total expected costs of the camp, which was mostly financed by the state government under a $125 million contract with a private contractor. Yes, I am a private contractor. I just happen to be related to the mayor. Here is my side deal. Sign it unseen, and we will not negotiate the price. The state put up $65 million for the tent camp and for permanent structures at a site in the Little Village neighborhood. Together, they would house 2,200 migrants. But the state stepped in on December 5th, putting an end to the controversial project over environmental concerns at the former industrial site. Nice. Mayor Brandon Johnson claimed taxpayer money was not on the camp was not lost on the camp because the lot has been assessed and further prepared for future use. Governor J.B. Pritzker claimed the company knew it was possible that the environmental report wouldn't allow the completion of the shelter. You still tried to put it there. They understood that, and they were willing to take that liability through the state's contract, the Democrat said. I know we have to point out he's a Democrat. What's the difference? He's still screwing up. It comes as, despite Chicago's officials, a desperate Chicago official, sorry, that's bouncing here and I'm having trouble keeping track of the lettering. It comes as desperate Chicago officials voted on Wednesday to allow the city to begin impounding buses, dropping off migrants without previous approval or outside designed time and zones. The first rogue bus from Texas was impounded the same night after trying to drop off 49 migrants. Those who violate the revised rules will now also face a $3,000 in fines plus towing and storage fees. But who actually owns the bus, though? If they're impounding a bus, is this bus property of the state of Texas, or is this a chartered bus and all you're doing is hurting the chartering company? Whose buses are they? Let me see. As I catch up here, Henry says the mayor has also been talking about sending these migrants all across Illinois. Yeah, and those small towns can't handle it. All of these states are talking about that. Colorado has been talking about that. Massachusetts, New York. Oh, we're going to send them upstate. We're going to send them to these rural communities. They can't accommodate that. They can't accommodate it, but it'll happen because those local community lawmakers will want the check associated with it and are going to sell their people out to get that money. All People says the personal modem companies are the ones that will generally mail you free modem in exchange for your broken one if it's from the company in the same model. Yeah, like I said, we can just try. And Velvet Pilot says it's a comedy of errors. All People also says, why would anyone who's an adult have such a childish fantasy as to think there's a magic land somewhere on Earth that will give them everything they want and need? Are they actually 7 years old? Well, it's kind of working for some of them. The American dream, folks. And Dragon said Chicago's policymakers didn't spend that money frivolously. They stole it. Guarantee 75% of that money went into somebody's pocket. It's taxpayer money. It's always easy to spend someone else's money. And Helter says the $1 million didn't disappear into thin air. It's still around somewhere, probably in the bank accounts of crooked contractors and politicians. And there's Deanna, and she says cats. That's right. There's one in the room. He's asleep over there on top of some boxes. And Preparedness says here they're now finding old military bases to house illegals. Yeah. And your tax dollars are paying for it. And this is absolutely reprehensible that it's going on, that they're allowing this to continue, that they're wasting so much money on this kind of stuff. But Chicago's not done with them yet. Yeah, we're going to impound the buses. And like I had said, I'm curious to know whose buses those are. If they're chartered buses, you're only hurting the chartering company. You're not hurting Texas, and they'll get more buses. Or unless the idea is that if they put the kibosh on the charter companies, that they're not going to want to allow for any more buses to bring migrants there. But then you know what? You can just book them a flight. Put them on Amtrak. You can't impound a train. That's what you do. Hey, Governor of Texas, if you are watching, put them on Amtrak. Get them. It costs about the same. Put them on Amtrak and have them railroaded in. They were railroaded into the country. Railroad them into Chicago. That's what you do. But Chicago's not done with the migrants yet. As we jump to Newsweek, and it says unvaccinated migrants fuel dramatic spike in chickenpox cases in Chicago. Really? It says unvaccinated migrants are fueling a surge in chickenpox cases in Chicago. Local health officials said on Thursday nearly 400 cases of chickenpox in Chicago have been identified so far this year. With the past 4 weeks, good Lord, hold still, specifically marking an increase in cases according to a health alert released by the Chicago Department of Public Health. The city averages 53 cases of chickenpox per year, local television station WLS reported. So they're way up. The rise in chickenpox cases comes as city officials across the country grapple with an influx of migrants. Migrants have been bused to several major cities at crossings. As crossings remain high at the U.S.-Mexico border, but many officials say they lack the resources to cope with the increase. In Chicago's more than 25,000 migrants have arrived since August 31st, 2022, according to city data. Chickenpox is caused by the varicella zoster virus and leads to an itchy rash with small fluid-filled blisters. Nasty. It is often mild and non-life-threatening, but can become serious and lead to other health problems such as infected skin, dehydration, pneumonia, or the swelling of the brain. It can also lead to death in rare cases. The illness spreads easily to individuals who have not received the vaccine or previously been infected, according to the Mayo Clinic. However, most Americans have received the vaccine, resulting in a decline in cases since its introduction in 1995. So is that your stance? Now, a couple more comments here, or one more. No, there's no more comments to catch up on. Okay. Anyways, a lot of people in even those third world countries have been vaccinated, because Lord knows we test a lot of vaccinations on those people. All right, so I doubt they haven't been vaccinated at all, number one. Number two, there's a rise in chickenpox amongst who? Are Chicago citizens getting chickenpox, or is it just the so-called migrants who have it? And if it's so-called migrants, is it adults or young people? The article doesn't really tell you. If it's people who are citizens of Chicago, they should have been vaccinated already. And if you're vaccinated, then you shouldn't have to worry about catching it from someone if the vaccine works. And if it's young people coming from South America, it wouldn't surprise me. That's the kind of thing a lot of young people get. I think I had chickenpox. I'm pretty sure I had chickenpox. It's hard to remember when I was a kid. Preparedness says the basic rules of stability and security have been violated. It's unfathomable as to why they're letting this happen. To break down society. They're trying to ruin it. If you tear it down, you can rebuild it. Think of Zorn Industries from The Fifth Element. You remember the movie The Fifth Element? For those of you who have seen it, and you had Zorn Enterprises. Was it Zorn Enterprises or Zorn Industries? And he was talking to the priest and explaining why he was inviting the evil to come to Earth. He knocks this something on the floor and it breaks, and all the little robots come out and clean it up. The little Zumba comes out and cleans up the mess. And he says, "You see, this is why I'm doing it. because you tear a structure down, you get to clean it up and rebuild it, but you can rebuild it your way. All People says, is it true that chickenpox causes shingles in grown-ups? I have no idea what causes. I don't remember. I've read something about it, but I don't remember if it's supposed to be chickenpoxes that causes shingles. That sounds familiar. Don't know if it's true or not, just because they say it's true. I have no idea. Velvet Pilot says, how could you trust any vaccines these days? Don't they force tons of that junk on servicemen and women? Yes. Probably unused stock they need to get rid of. Monkey says, I remember getting chickenpox, had a bathtub party sessions from it. And All People says, migrants are making Robocop a private directive programming. The elites are using chaos magic on society. And Deanna says it's the same. And Preparedness says, yeah, if you haven't had chickenpox, you're unlikely to get the shingles. Is the shingles because of chickenpox or because of the vaccination that you use to keep from getting it? I don't know. And Nathan says there is an ad campaign in Australia saying that shingles is the chickenpox virus laying dormant in adults. I have no idea. But they're blaming the migrants for a chickenpox outbreak. That normally they have 53 cases a year, and now recently they've had 400. But they don't tell you if it's only illegal immigrants who are coming in with chickenpox and what country or countries they're coming from. Because that could be very specific, and that's something that they need to know, especially if they're going to complain about it. And the article goes on to blame Texas for sending migrants to various sanctuary cities by bus. It says a move critics say is playing politics with migrants and meant to overwhelm cities and states with more lenient policies surrounding immigration. Texas officials, however, say border communities struggle to contend with the rise in migration in recent years. I bet they are struggling with it. Those small Texas border towns, I bet you they're suffering badly and have been for some time. And it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better, not under the current administration. All you could hope for is that whoever ends up in office next, provided that another 81 million magic votes don't get pulled out of the hat, that this next person decides to put an end to that, to shut the border down, to throw all these people out and send them back where they came from. Because that's the only thing that's going to stop it. And people are hoping that that'll be an opportunity to get back to normal. You're not going to get back to normal. You're not going to get back to the way things were, but things can still improve. They can still improve instead of continuing to deteriorate like they are. All People says in their greed to get freebies, the migrants do not realize that they are being brought into Western land so they can get blamed for everything wrong. And Velvet Pilot says, what do you think about the forced change to EVs? That's another breaking down of society. First, the EVs, electric vehicles, are expensive. Second, they're toxic. You know what I was thinking about the other day is usually when an old car has been on its last leg, typically they drain the fluids out of it and then they crush it and then they melt it down to a slag and they separate the metals for recycling purposes because you can reuse a lot of that. You cannot do that with an electric vehicle because that battery, it's too volatile. If you puncture it, it's going to explode. You can't crush it. You can't break it down. How do you recycle a battery like that? Do they have a method currently for recycling those gigantic batteries? They're dangerous. They're prone to fires. They're really not safe. And there's no system set up, no nationwide system set up to accommodate them. They're trying to force it to virtue signal and to check boxes. Oh, look, we're going to go all electric, with no consideration to how taxing that's going to be on the power grid, how much more fossil fuels you're going to need to power that grid. Because first of all, at least in the United States, we're 80% coal, roughly 80% coal, and the rest of it is wind power, nuclear, natural gas, and hydroelectric dams. That only accounts for about 20%. You can't replace all that coal that fast. You're not going to do it. You couldn't do it in 50 years. Also, the mining that is necessary, the contamination of environment, the amount of labor intensity that is required for the mining of that equipment, the amount of huge diesel-powered machinery that is needed for excavation just to get the materials that are necessary for even building batteries for those systems is astronomical. And those things inhale fuel, diesel fuel. So you'd have to dig more and contaminate the environment more and poison waterways more. The alternative, forcing that transition quickly, is worse than what we've got. And All People says the EV batteries alone are so poisonous they could kill entire towns. They are toxic, and they can't put those fires out. But while we're on the subject, or we were on the subject of chickenpox, we may as well jump to another virus. And this comes from the Daily Express. New C virus variants, including JN1, are positively ripping through the US, and it sparks concerns. And preparedness is ironic that vehicles over 40 years old are exempt from emission zone charges here. Yeah, in the US too. If you have an antique vehicle, there's no emissions testing. You don't have to. Any other vehicle you do. And I never understood that either. We have to get emissions tests to help the environment, right? But only in certain counties. And that's not just here in Georgia. I've seen the same thing in other states, including Illinois. So you're living in X county in Illinois, and right next door, you don't have to get an emissions test. Same thing out here. You live in this neighborhood, emissions test. You live in this one, no emissions test. So is just that neighborhood safe from toxic emissions? The air doesn't mix? How does that work? Either the whole state does it or not at all. Either the whole province does it or not at all. Or the whole, you can't just have it be county by county and somehow it magically works. I guess there's invisible barriers that we can't tell that they're air bubbles. Oh, the air is cleaner here because everyone here got an emissions test. But these two counties, oh, they're dirty. I never understood the point of that besides the fact that the state gets a fee from those emissions tests, or the county gets a fee. They tax those. Anyway, on to the C virus. It says recent discoveries of 4 subvariants of the C virus circulating in the US have alarmed healthcare experts worldwide. Vaccines have significantly reduced case numbers in many countries. Yeah, I don't believe that. But the ever-evolving virus continues to pose challenges, particularly as winter approaches, because it works better in cold weather, I guess. There have been significant outbreaks of strains in the US and the UK, while in India, cases are surging, with the state of Kerala emerging as an epicenter for one new subvariant. Here's what we know about the current C virus variants circulating the US and the globe. Eris, the common name of the EG5 variant, is thought to be a descendant of the XBB Omicron subvariant that came from China earlier this year. HV1 evolved from Eris and skyrocketed to prominence over the summer. It now accounts for more than 30% of cases in the US. These two variants account for nearly half of C virus cases in the United States, but experts have said that they do not pose as much of a threat as other variants, as new vaccines are effective against EG5 and HV1. I don't believe they're effective at all. Personally, I don't think they work. I don't know what those things do besides make people sick. Make people sick. Legends said it's the grandfather rule that allows older vehicles to go by since they were built at a different time. And Henry says, here comes the push for mail-in ballots. No kidding. And Velvet made a $5 donation to the channel. Thank you, Velvet. Very much appreciated. And he says, I think EVs are also part of the elite's way of controlling us from moving freely. In the end, they want us all to depend on public transportation. And they want the ability to shut those cars down. And the more electronic they are, the easier it is to do it. Put a governor on there, which some states are adopting now, or setting it up for vehicles in the future that are getting manufactured to have a governor on them so that they can turn your car off remotely, like they do with thermostats in certain states. Helter says, I wouldn't be surprised if this new variant is another tyrannical attempt for the elites to create a one world government or one world religion, a financial system, and enslavement of us all. We're already slaves. It's just that most people can't see through it. But that doesn't mean that the yoke can't be screwed on tighter. That's what it means. I don't trust any of that. I don't think those things work. I think they're making people sick. We've seen a huge rise in strokes and heart attacks since those shots started circulating, and advertising for it even before they started circulating the shots. Can you identify a childhood stroke? I remember seeing that on billboards, and it's like, what the hell is happening that they think, oh yeah, they're rolling this new untested shot out that they want everybody to take now. That's what's going on. But we're seeing a rise in strokes. We're seeing a rise in heart attacks and heart problems and other problems. It's scary. It's scary. I don't trust any of it. I really don't. And Legend says every election gets worse with nonsense. They can never be an election where the year flies by. And Dragon says it's too much of a coincidence. The new variants closely resemble January 1st. But yeah, and it goes on to warn you about developments and global outbreaks and potential winter surges and all of this other nonsense. And it's like, yeah, you know, cold weather, people get sick because they don't take care of themselves. And it's not because it's cold out, it's because of how people get sluggish when it's cold. They don't want to go out, they don't want to exercise, they don't want to do this and that. And it's like, you know, if you're going to sit around and be a slob, then you know what, you might get sick. It's as simple as that. And so, oh, it's flu season. No, it's lazy ass people season is what the problem is. I'll tell you what, to quote Hank Hill. But I don't trust it. I don't like it. It's an excuse for people to keep getting shots and to keep getting boosters that are ineffective and that probably cause other ailments and other illnesses. And all I can do is recommend unofficially, because I am not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I am not a registered nurse. I'm not a biologist. But in my humble opinion, if you can avoid having a needle stuck in you and getting pumped full of some unknown fluid, I would totally stay away from that. I would stay as far away from it as possible. I don't like the idea of vaccinations. I've never even had a flu shot, talked about it before. And I've shown my shot record on on this channel. I've shown it on the live stream a couple months back because there's like 5 things on it. I don't think I've had a shot since like 1971 or 1972. That was it. And it's just the basic stuff. A couple of basic things like a polio and smallpox, something like that. And I am of the last generation to get a smallpox vaccination because they don't do that anymore because it's been eradicated. Smallpox only exists in laboratories now. So if there's ever an outbreak of smallpox, you know what happened. You know how it happened. It was released on purpose. On purpose. Get your tinfoil hat out, folks. Get your tinfoil hat out as I go on and on. Bottom line, I just don't trust it. I can't tell anybody what to do. If you want to go and get jabbed up, help yourself. If you want to do that to your kids, I don't know what to say about that. But I would avoid it if at all possible. Remember, I'm going from 5 shots and then nobody gave a damn after like 1971 or 1972 to now the average kid has 30 before they're even 10 years old. It's disgusting. And Brian is here. He says, sorry I'm late. That's all right, Brian. Glad you could make it. Almost didn't make it myself today. I talked about that earlier. A lot of problems with the modem. A lot of problems. I'm on number 3. That's the third one right there because the other ones wouldn't work. And Velvet Pilot says, when I see people still wearing face masks, I can't help but shake my head. It's like putting on a dunce cap and walking around town. You have to have 2. That's why. 2 masks. 1, 2. And then you put on your latex gloves, unless you're allergic to latex. And then you have to have your hand sanitizer clipped to your belt loop so that you can get some in an emergency and just rub it up. You know what drives me nuts? You're talking about the people with the masks on. You know what pisses me off is when, because everywhere you go, they've got that bottle of hand sanitizer now, right? Everywhere you go, there's a bottle. It doesn't matter. Go to the bank, go to the supermarket, anywhere you go to the, you go to a restaurant, there's a bottle of hand sanitizer, a big jug, like a gallon size with a pump on the top. And the person who every time they walks past it, they've got to get a squirt of hand sanitizer. It's like, dude, I was in the supermarket a week ago. I think it was a week ago. And you know how at the customer service, and they have a bottle there, and the person gets some, rubs their hands. I'm in line and I'm watching this. And then they sign something. They use the pen, and then they get some more because the pen might have had germs. It's like, you just put sanitizer on, you schlep. What the hell? What is wrong with you people? How much hand sanitizer do you need? How much do you need? You know, you're not only drying out your skin, but you're lowering your own ability to fight infection. And it only kills 99.9% of bacteria. What about the other 0.1%? It's going to get you. It's going to get you. You need more hand sanitizer. Let's go. Well, let's jump down to the South again. And this is an article from the National Review. National Review, it says Border Patrol warns agents to be on alert for explosives after finding 10 IEDs at the border. So now there's booby traps. All right. Customs and Border Patrol issued a memo on Wednesday warning agents to be on alert for illegal immigrants carrying explosives after 10 improvised explosive devices were found near the border. Agents were advised to exercise extreme caution and should report any possible armed subjects approaching the border with possible explosive devices in a memo first obtained by Fox Business. I would hope that they would be nervous about anybody approaching the border armed before this memo came out. Just saying. The IEDs were discovered after agents stationed at Tucson border post exchanged fire with cartel members near a local ranch. Interesting. The news comes against the backdrop of ongoing immigration policy debates in Washington, where Republicans have pushed to include greater funding for border security. Gee, I wonder why. Within the White House's broader $106 billion aid package to Israel and the Ukraine. I don't think it's fair to put Israel first on that because Ukraine was getting the lion's share of that $106 billion. They were getting like 68 billion of it. And then Israel was getting like 12. And then the rest of it was going all over the place. And they had like what, 7 or 8 billion for the border out of all of that. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong about those numbers. On Tuesday, Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters hold still, will you? After meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, that any foreign aid bill would have to be paired with increased security measures to strengthen the U.S.-Mexico border region. Thus far, their responses have been insufficient and not provided us any clarity and the detail that we've requested over and over since literally 24 hours after I was handed the gavel as Speaker of the House, Johnson told reporters. Look at them all, looking for a gap in the fence there, I guess. They can stand on each other's shoulders. Maybe there's some acrobats in the bunch. Nature Nerd says, remember when Obama gave Mexican cartels loads of arms? That never happened. Shame, shame. You're not allowed to talk about that, remember? You're not allowed to talk about that. You're supposed to pretend like it never happened. Never happened. It was Obama. He's impeachable. He's impeccable. He's squeaky clean. It's like Mr. Clean, only black. Black-ish. Let me see here. On Thursday, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced the Senate would return early from its holiday recess to hammer out the details of a border agreement that will give negotiators from the White House, Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans a time to work through the weekend in an effort to reach a framework agreement. It will then take some time to turn the framework into text, Schumer said. Problem number one, it needs to be its own independent bill. You want a package to send money to Ukraine, it needs to be a Ukraine package. You want to send money to Israel, it needs to be a Israel package. You want border money, a border package. Not we'll mix it together and throw 50 other groups in there that we want to give a handout to and sign this to get a little bit of money to whatever you're worried about. And the reason, though, that they mix packages like that and they make a hodgepodge out of it is because that's the only way it'll get passed. If it was a Ukraine-only package, almost nobody would want to vote for it. Ukraine with a little bit of Israel, well, I'd like to send some money to Israel, so okay, maybe I'll say yes. Ukraine, Israel, and the border, well, maybe I'm nudged a little bit more. That's how that shit works. And it's unfortunate because it's deceptive. And there's a whole bunch of snippets of other little programs and things in there, crazy stuff, alphabet mafia garbage, and, research and development for what red ants do in Nigeria or something like that. Crazy things, sideways deals, kickbacks to unions. There's all kinds of weird stuff mixed into those packages that don't get revealed until God knows months later, after an army of interns have had time to go through sometimes as many as 70,000 pages on some of these. If you've ever seen those booklets for those packages, it's insane. It's absolutely insane how big those packages are and how much is written into them. And I'm like, who has time to write all of that? Where do they find these people? Can you put them to use for something more important? But back to the point, that's an aspect of, or back to the article, an aspect of problems at the border a lot of people have not considered, besides the fact that you have a massive influx of illegal immigrants just flooding across the southern and northern border, is that as was pointed out in the article, they're also getting into firefights with people and are finding booby traps. They just found 10 explosive booby traps. So that's scary. That's a lot to deal with. Preparedness says UK borrowed 3.75 billion from the US after World War II. This amount is equivalent to approximately 50 billion in today's money. However, due to various reasons, the UK ultimately repaid 7.5 billion. They didn't pay it back. That's one of the reasons why you can't be throwing your money all over the world like that. You may not get it back, and that is whose money? Whose money is that? That's your taxpayer dollars. That's your taxpayer money wherever you live. And I'm talking about the US right now, but it applies to any country. When your government does whatever the hell with money, things that you may not agree with, that is your tax dollars at work, whether you like it or not. And if you have no say in it, no say in how it's spent whatsoever, there's your taxation without representation. That's what it looks like ultimately. And that's unfortunate. And they will tell you, oh, well, you are being represented. And I mention this often. And, for those of you who may be listening or watching that have never heard me go on about this before, because it's a pet peeve of mine. I have many. I have a long list. That phone's about to be one of them. Because that's my phone chiming. It's actually my wife sending me a message. I'll look at it in a moment. But they'll tell you your elected official is your representation. You voted for that person and they voted for this. It's represented. Yeah, but they're not representing the taxes in a way that the constituents would approve of. Ultimately, they get into office and they divert their course and they go off and do something else aside from what they promised or what they implied, because of money, because of influence, because of power, because of whatever. And then you're not really being represented anymore, are you? You're not, even if it's a majority. And if there is a majority that wants to move against something, they'll try to block you, like in the article yesterday where the Chicago City Council voted to take away the rights of their constituents to vote on whether or not they could remain a sanctuary city. They knew that the people were going to vote it down, so they voted to take away their right to vote. So tell me again how I've got representation. There is none. Nature Nerd says no immigrant wants to stay in Canada because of the high taxes, housing shortage, high cost of living, poor health care and services, and lack of high-skilled job opportunities. Social medicine, social programs. Yeah, they work out great, but it'll be okay this time because we're going to be, what do they call it? Democratic socialists? Yeah, let's see how that works. Renaming it doesn't make it work. Just saying. An article from Fox News. Something we've talked about a lot lately. Female athletes shred witness testimony suggesting women should lose gracefully to transmogrified competitors. I heard that. They were told basically to suck it up. Female athletes took exception to a nonprofit leader's statement made during congressional testimony about Title IX last week after many said she appeared to suggest that women and girls competing in sports should, quote, learn to lose gracefully to transmogrified athletes competing alongside of them. Yeah, suck it up. Suck it up, girlfriend. Transmogrified students participate in sports for the same reasons as other kids. Fatima Gross-Graves, president and CEO of the women's rights nonprofit National Women's Law Center, said, wow, that's a mouthful. Because it's fun, because it creates belonging and community, because it teaches so much about persistence, leadership, and discipline. And last, they learn to lose gracefully, hopefully and often with dignity, she continued. There she is. You know what I've noticed? Every article I've read in the last few months, when you're talking about, with a few exceptions, almost every one, your mayors, your governors, your college presidents, your organization presidents and CEOs, they're all female. And they all have like these really smug things to say, like this. Former University of Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines, who has been outspoken about the alleged unfairness of allowing biological men to compete in women's events, fired back at the suggestion, noting that even when she tied with transmogrified University of Pennsylvania swimmer Leah Thomas for 5th place during the 2022 NCAA finals, she gracefully lost to the 4 biological women who placed in front of her. For the record, I've lost gracefully many times in my career, even speaking to the incident of Thomas and I at the national championships. We tied for 5th, granted 5th in the entire nation, so it's still an incredible achievement, Gaines said to Congress, but there were 4 women who beat me. I'm incredibly proud of those women who beat me, so I certainly can and have lost gracefully many times in my career. Many times. And Gary says Transylvania Sick 5000. I remember that movie, Transylvania 6 5000. I remember that movie. I can't think of who was in it. Helter says they should tell those men on women's teams to lose gracefully to men on their own teams rather than jumping to women's teams to feel better about themselves. Well put. And Broken Gardening says just sliding in here now. Well, glad you could make it, Gardening. And Gary says the government is a two-headed wolf. Correct. And Dragon says women have to shut up and take it. When a man changes in a locker room in front of them, I kind of remember that being called indecent exposure. Indeed. And Nature Nerd said FDR started all the high taxes and social programs in America in the 1940s. Yeah, the New Deal. A chicken in every pot. They didn't get it, but he offered it. Before that, we didn't have income tax in America. As a response to the Great Depression, it all went downhill from there. They would have been better off muddling through the Great Depression. As the Bible said, the poor will be with you always. You can't take care of everybody. Basically, you can't take care of everybody. You can't worry about everybody all the time. It's not cruel to look after your own first. It's not inhumane or unethical to look after your own first, because your responsibility works in circles. You have your inner core, your target, and then you have the next circle and the next circle. Velvet Pilot says it reminds me of South Park's Go Strong Woman episode where she gets beat by a dude. Yeah, that's the one where they impersonated Roddy Piper. Not Roddy Piper, I'm sorry. Macho Man Randy Savage. They impersonated Macho Man Randy Savage. I don't know where I got Roddy Piper for. And I say, Lady Pop, it says, good seeing you. Hope you have a good weekend. I hope so too, because it's been a very frustrating last couple of days. Also, really last few weeks, as my wife is taking care of her parents, and so am I, because of a family emergency. There's a lot going on, so it's been tough. It's been tough. Hanging in there, folks. Hanging in there, folks. Trying to do the right thing. So, Uncle shifts around. One more look at Uncle, everybody, as we get ready to. There he is, sitting on top of the boxes. As we're getting close to the top of the hour and getting ready to wrap up. And Gary says, happy trail smells. Yeah, okay. As we get ready to wrap up, again, this is Coffee Talk. You are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk. And if you're looking for me on YouTube, it is at Coffee Talk Live. Please do drop a sub there if you are not already or have not already, as well as Prepper University on ScrewTube. 2 of the most oppressed channels there, I think. It feels like it anyways. As well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. And fistfulofradio.com. podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Thanks again to everybody who was able to join us here today. I hope you got something out of the conversation. Special thanks, of course, to Velvet Pilot, who made a donation to the channel. Always, always appreciated. All people says skinny, underweight little uncle. Yeah, I know. He's the exact opposite. As you can get a better idea there if you see him. He's a big boy. He's a really big boy. He's a very gentle animal, though. And Velvet Pilot reminds people to hit the like button. Much appreciated. I will go ahead and sign off. We will do this again Monday. Hope you got something out of the conversation, folks. And we will see you again, well, Monday.